Have you ever looked at your own resume, read through the bullet points, and just felt like a complete stranger to your own career?
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrible feeling.
Right. Like the person described on that piece of paper is just this, I don't know, this two-dimensional corporate avatar.
Mm.
It loosely shares your job history, but it entirely fails to capture the reality of what you actually did.
Yeah, it is deeply unsettling. And honestly, it points to a much larger systemic failure because you sit down to apply for a role or, update a professional profile, and suddenly you're attempting to reconstruct your entire professional value from these fuzzy memories.
Fuzzy memories and like outdated job descriptions from 5 years ago.
Exactly. And the result is almost always this flattened, generic version of your career. It's frustrating.
It is. And the stakes here couldn't be higher for you, the listener,
Hmm.
because you're trying to prove your worth to a system that, quite frankly, is engineered to filter you out.
Which is exactly what we're looking at today.
Yes, that structural tension is the core focus of this deep dive. Our mission today is to give you a blueprint to stop reconstructing your professional story from scratch every single time a machine demands it.
Which happens a lot more than it used to.
Oh, constantly. We are diving into a trio of manuals and execution workbooks authored by Jeff Chamberlain, self-published in 2026. So we're looking at the what comes after the resume companion workbook seed outline, the phase 3 execution manuscript, and the dense notes and references architecture that underpins his entire framework.
And Chamberlain's texts are so critical right now because they identify this massive shift in the workforce. We are currently trapped between automated AI-driven systems that generate what he calls professional surfaces.
Surfaces, right?
Yeah, surfaces. So things like applicant tracking systems, algorithmic scorecards, digital profiles. We're trapped between those and the desperate need for a private, worker-owned evidence layer.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why we need a new evidence layer, we really have to understand the mechanics of why the traditional resume is fundamentally broken in the AI era.
It really is broken.
Right, because we aren't just writing for human hiring managers anymore.
No, not at all. We are writing for machines that, frankly, read differently than humans do. The framework specifically points out enterprise-level systems like Workday Skills Cloud or Workday's Hired Score AI and Greenhouse's AI summarized scorecards.
Which are everywhere now.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And these systems, they do not read for narrative. They don't care about nuance. They optimize human beings into actionable data objects. They parse, they score, and they rank you based on mathematical proximity to a target profile.
It's like trying to compress a complex three-dimensional human being into a flat, scannable barcode.
That's a great way to put it.
You have all this depth, right? Like your judgment under pressure, the context of the crises you navigated, but you have to flatten it into this rigid format.
Yeah.
And if the barcode scanner, the AI, can't read you.
Or if your barcode is slightly unconventional because, maybe you took a nonlinear career path.
Exactly. Then you effectively do not exist to the system. You're invisible.
And this legibility crisis is so severe that regulatory bodies are actually stepping in. Chamberlain anchors his argument with the EEOC's April 2024 guidance on AI and employment discrimination.
Which is a pretty big deal when it came out.
Massive. Because that guidance highlights how algorithmic tools systematically misread or exclude capable workers by prioritizing standardized markers over actual capability. And Chamberlain frames this beautifully. He says workers used to have a signal problem.
The signal problem.
Right, like 10 years ago, the challenge was standing out in a stack of 200 printed resume.
Oh, yeah, like you'd use a slightly heavier paper stock or, tweak the formatting to catch someone's eye.
Exactly. But the implementation of these AI layers has transformed that signal problem into an evidence problem. The challenge is no longer standing out. It's proving that your underlying capability is real when a summarization algorithm has aggressively compressed your entire career into a flat scorecard.
Wow. So if the problem is that the system destroys your context, then the solution has to be a mechanism that preserves it.
Precisely. Which leads to Chamberlain's broader framework, referencing his book Stranger with a Document, where he introduces the living professional record.
A living professional record.
Yes, this is the worker-owned evidence layer. It is a private vault of professional truth engineered specifically to preserve your agency rather than simply feeding the corporate algorithm.
I really want to focus on that phrase, private vault of professional truth.
It's essential because the living professional record sits completely outside the purview of your employer and outside the reach of public networking platforms. It belongs entirely to the worker.
But wait, if you've been working for, say, 20 years, Building a comprehensive vault sounds like a 6-month archaeology project.
Oh, it sounds terrifying.
Right. Digging up every old email, performance review, and like project post-mortem seems like an incredibly overwhelming barrier to entry. I mean, who has the time for a massive data dump like that?
Almost no one. And the Phase 3 execution manuscript, specifically chapters 10 through 12, warns against that exact trap. The build phase does not ask you to construct a comprehensive life history.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, because reconstructing 20 years all at once leads to immediate paralysis. Instead, the process demands that you start with a minimum viable record.
Which is a concept borrowed straight from software development. Right. You don't build the whole app. You build the smallest functional version to prove the concept.
Exactly that. In this context, you capture one bounded unit. Just one. It could be one specific project, one current role, or even a single critical decision.
Okay, that feels much more manageable.
It is. And to capture it, Chamberlain relies on a highly constrained 5-question framework.
Let's hear the questions.
Okay, so you ask, what happened? What did I contribute? What evidence exists? What claim might this support? And finally, what should not be shared?
Okay, let's ground this in a real scenario so we can see how it works. Say someone is a project manager who just salvaged a disastrous software migration because the primary vendor went bankrupt mid-rollout.
A very stressful Tuesday.
Right. So the traditional resume instinct is to write a bullet point like, led cross-functional software migration on time and under budget, which is, frankly, entirely forgettable.
And that forgettable bullet point is what Chamberlain calls drift.
Drift.
Yeah, drift. Because when you generalize, you drift away from the actual evidence into meaningless corporate buzzwords. So let's run your scenario through the minimum viable record framework to perform what the text calls context rehydration.
I love that phrase, context rehydration. It's like adding the water back to the freeze-dried resume bullet.
That is exactly what it is. So let's rehydrate it. Question 1. What happened? The primary software vendor filed for bankruptcy 3 weeks before a global rollout, threatening millions in lost revenue.
Okay, much better already.
Question 2. What did I contribute? Well, I rapidly vetted and onboarded a secondary vendor, renegotiated the SLAs within 48 hours, and kept the rollout on schedule.
Nice.
Question 3. What evidence exists? The revised contract terms, the emergency project timeline, and an email chain from the CTO acknowledging the save.
Which naturally leads to question 4, right? What claim might this support? Because this isn't just project management anymore. This supports claims of crisis management, rapid vendor negotiation, and executive communication.
Spot on. And then the crucial 5th question. What should not be shared?
All right.
You'd want to hold back the original vendor's name, the exact financial metrics of the potential loss, and, of course, the proprietary details of the new contract.
The difference in quality between the freeze-dried buzzword and the rehydrated context is staggering.
It's night and day.
I mean, if you're going into a 5-round interview process, perhaps, say, transitioning from the military to the corporate sector, specific beats comprehensive every time.
Every single time.
Because a civilian hiring manager might have no idea what a specific military designation means, but they completely understand a rehydrated unit of evidence about managing risk and coordinating hostile stakeholders under extreme pressure.
Exactly. You are gathering the raw material of how you actually think and operate. You are documenting your professional judgment in a private space, entirely removed from the pressure of a job application that usually forces you to invent something that sounds impressive but lacks any real foundation.
But capturing this pristine, rehydrated truth, it feels like it creates a new vulnerability.
How so?
Well, if you have all this highly accurate, granular evidence in a private vault, how do you translate that to a public page? Because there's a massive gap between a private record of saving a failing vendor relationship and crafting a public statement that won't, violate an NDA or make you sound like a fraud.
That is the million-dollar question. And this transition from private evidence gathering to public language generation is governed by the claim map.
The claim map.
Yes, it's detailed heavily in chapters 13 and 14. The claim map is the architectural bridge. It relies on a formal system called claim maturity classifications.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you aren't just writing down skills, you are grading the truth value of your own statements.
Exactly. You are categorizing the structural integrity of your claims. The classifications include proven, supported, emerging, context-dependent, private, outdated, needs verification, unsupported, and retired.
Wow, that's a lot. I want to look closely at context-dependent and emerging because those totally break the traditional rules of resume writing.
Oh, they shatter them.
Usually if you use a skill once, you crank the volume dial all the way up to 10 and list yourself as an expert.
Right, because the traditional resume encourages overclaiming. But if an AI tool helps you write a hyper-aggressive resume and you claim expert leadership based on, like, managing one intern,
You're going to get caught.
yeah, you damage trust the moment an interviewer probes that claim. The claim map forces you to right-size your confidence. You might classify your leadership as emerging if you've only managed one small project.
Or you might label it context-dependent if you're an incredibly effective leader in a scrappy 10-person startup, but you've never navigated the politics of a massive, heavily matrixed Fortune 500 bureaucracy.
Exactly.
Your leadership works in one context, but it might not seamlessly transfer to another.
And by enforcing this maturity scale, the framework prevents overclaiming, but it also cures an arguably more destructive problem, which is underclaiming.
Underclaiming.
Yeah, capable workers constantly render themselves invisible to ATS systems because they assume their everyday problem solving wasn't strategic enough to mention. But when you explicitly map your claims to specific evidence, you realize you actually have undeniable proof of capability.
This right-sizing of language, it seems to do something much deeper on a psychological level, too. It separates the worker from the document.
Yes, it decouples the worker's human dignity from their professional evidence. Think about it. When an applicant tracking system rejects you, or a corporate recruiter ghosts you, the natural human reaction is to internalize that as a rejection of your personal worth.
You feel totally inadequate.
Right, because you've been conditioned to view that two-dimensional document as a holistic representation of your value.
But the claim map fundamentally alters that relationship. Your worth is intrinsic.
Yes.
So when you face rejection in this framework, you understand that the system didn't reject you. It rejected a specific professional claim that either wasn't properly supported by the evidence you provided, or, honestly, it simply didn't match the highly specific algorithmic barcode the machine was searching for on that particular Tuesday.
Exactly. Claim status becomes a judgment of data availability, not a judgment of the human being.
That reframing takes the emotional sting entirely out of the modern job hunt. It reduces the rejection to a data management issue. You just look at the map and say, my claim of vendor negotiation wasn't mature enough for that role.
It's incredibly empowering.
It really is. So we have the minimum viable record for gathering evidence and the claim map for right-sizing the language. But where does all this actually live? Because my instinct as a lazy human is to just, dump all these rehydrated stories into a Google Doc or a public LinkedIn profile.
And doing that would completely compromise the final, most critical step in Phase 3, which is governance.
Governance, okay.
Chamberlain outlines a strict architectural structure for the private source library. It is organized into 3 distinct operational layers. You have Folder 01 source, Folder 02 claims, and Folder 03 renderings.
Oh, interesting. This implies a unidirectional flow of information.
It demands an absolute non-negotiable boundary rule. The rendering, meaning the final resume, the digital profile, the applicant scorecard, must never, under any circumstances, become the source.
Because the moment you treat your marketing copy as the historical truth, you lose the context. You start believing the freeze-dried buzzwords, and then next year when you go to update your resume, you're trying to rehydrate a summary of a summary.
And the degradation of truth there is rapid. But the governance layer extends far beyond just folder structures. The texts mandate that workers must apply formal privacy tiers to their own career data. Chamberlain grounds this by referencing major privacy frameworks and compliance standards like HIPAA and FERPA.
Applying enterprise-level data compliance to your own career history seems pretty intense.
It does, but it's necessary.
Well, going back to our project manager's scenario, the evidence they gathered included the unredacted contract of a bankrupt vendor and a private email from a CTO. You obviously cannot feed that into a public digital profile.
Right. Your professional truth almost always involves other people's confidential data. If you optimized a financial model for a client, your evidence might contain proprietary revenue numbers. This introduces the concept of proof without exposure.
Proof without exposure. Okay.
You must be able to prove your claims to a hiring manager without leaking sensitive information.
The text points to standard verifiable credentials data models to solve this. Translating that into a real-world concept, it functions a bit like a digital bouncer checking an ID at a bar.
I like that analogy.
Right. The bouncer only needs cryptographic proof that you are over 21. They do not need to know your home address, your weight, or your organ donor status.
That is the perfect way to explain it. These technical standards allow for that exact type of selective disclosure. You preserve the private, unredacted truth, the full contracts, the raw performance metrics in your 01 source folder.
Okay.
Then, when you construct a claim in the 02 claims folder, you apply explicit privacy boundaries. You might add a metadata tag that says, CTO name must be withheld, describe only as executive leadership.
Got it.
And when you finally push that data out to the 03 renderings folder to create a resume, you have total confidence that you have not violated an NDA or exposed a former client.
Okay, I see the architecture, but I really want to push on how this interacts with the technology everyone is actually using right now.
Let's do it.
Because if I have this beautifully governed 01 source folder full of sanitized, rehydrated evidence, my immediate instinct is to copy and paste the entire folder into ChatGPT and say, write me 5 punchy resume bullets.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't uploading this governed data into a large language model instantly violate the privacy architecture?
Yes, and this is perhaps the most urgent warning in the entire execution manuscript. You cannot indiscriminately dump your private source library into a public generative AI tool. To manage this interface, the framework introduces AI provenance and the integrity log.
Meaning you have to maintain a strict chain of custody for where the AI's information originated.
Exactly. To operationalize this, Chamberlain looks to federal generative AI guidelines. Workers must strictly govern the interaction between the AI and their private record. You're required to log the specific source material you allowed the AI to view, the exact prompts you issued, and the privacy boundaries you enforced prior to the upload.
So you sanitize the data before it ever touches the model.
Always. Furthermore, the golden rule of the living professional record is that generative AI must render from your record. It must never invent the record.
Render, not invent.
Right. You might provide an LLM with a sanitized, context-rehydrated summary of your vendor crisis and prompt it to generate 3 resume bullets under 20 words each.
But large language models are notorious for hallucinating to sound more pleasing. What if the AI decides to, spice up the bullet point by claiming I saved $3 million when my original evidence didn't specify a dollar amount?
It happens all the time.
Or what if it inflates my title from project manager to director of migrations?
Under the guidelines adapted for this framework, you must actively reject those inferences. You do not just delete the hallucination, you log the rejection in your governance system to maintain the integrity of your claims. The worker must retain complete sovereign control over the final output.
Because the machine is a rendering tool that works for you.
Exactly. You are not a data source feeding the machine.
So what does this all mean when we look at the macro picture? We are discussing a fundamental evolution in how workers interact with the economy. You are taking a listener who has historically been a passive data object. Someone just sitting there, tossing resumes into the void, hoping a scanner deems them legible.
Hoping to be chosen.
Right. And transforming them into an active owner of a governed, truthful evidence layer. This isn't just a strategy for tweaking a cover letter. It is a structural blueprint designed to protect a worker's income, mobility, and professional dignity.
It restores agency in an ecosystem designed to remove it. And if we extrapolate the adoption of this framework to its logical conclusion, we arrive at a truly paradigm-shifting scenario.
Walk us through that conclusion.
Well, if worker-owned records achieve wide adoption, if these private vaults become perfectly immune to AI distortion because they are grounded in human-verified, context-rich, privately governed evidence, how long until the market recognizes that traditional professional services are obsolete?
Wait, really? You're saying employers will realize generated resumes are inherently untrustworthy?
Think about it. Why would a sophisticated hiring manager trust a flat, easily hallucinated AI-generated PDF when they could simply request localized cryptographic access to a specific verified claim residing directly inside your underlying evidence vault?
Oh, wow.
Using verifiable credential standards, they could verify your capability without ever seeing a traditional resume. The resume as a format might not just evolve, it might disappear entirely.
That is a staggering vision of the future, the end of the generated surface, replaced entirely by governed truth. So the next time you find yourself staring at your resume feeling like a complete stranger to your own career history, remember that the flattened piece of paper is not you.
No, it's not.
The algorithmic barcode scanner is not you. You own your evidence, and the tools to govern it are already here. It's time to start building your vault. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and remember to keep questioning the surfaces you see.